course, we're here to talk about your sisters. I would love to just learn a little bit about them, what you do know about them, and just anything you'd be willing to share with me.
They died in a fire in 1985 by the hands of the Fayetteville Police Department. They dropped a bomb on that house, 6221 Osage Avenue, and Katricia and Lionell Dotson were among the 11 that were killed. They were only 12 and 14 years of age.
And you've already shared just a little bit of information with me, but would you mind sharing me anything? Is there anything else you'd like to add just as far as their passing or the bombing itself? Any other information we should be aware of?
Well, just the simple fact that this has been an ongoing tragic battle to receive my sister's remains from a medical examiner, which was in Philadelphia. They had him on the shelf for 37 years. And just August the 3rd, I received them in hand by way of the medical examiner's office, and they were cremated at Ivy Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia. And now I get to give them the proper goodbye versus them being suffering on the shelf for 37 years at the hands of the Philadelphia medical examiner's office.
Okay. And did you know that the medical examiner's office had their remains this whole time, or how did you find out?
I found just last year through an article that was on the internet last April before Mom passed away, and they were kept for what reason I do not know. I'm still researching that, me and my legal team, so we don't know yet why they were kept for so long. And I finally got to have them release them to me, and now they're here in my care. I can say my goodbyes when the time is right.
Okay. And seems a little bit frustrating, but what was your first reaction when you had realized that their remains were still at the medical examiner's office and you were able to retrieve them?
I would just, at my wits end, like, okay, why do you guys have them? Why do I have to wait so long? It's been over a year that I knew about them, and I just feel like they did it on their terms, and it just wasn't right. It's systemic racism, and like I've said before, had this been a white family, this would not have happened like this. They would not treat them like this, and racism needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. And how old were you when they passed away?
I was 8 years old living with a relative.
Okay. Do you remember anything about that time, or what that felt like in the moment?
I found out through way of television. My aunt told me that was your sister that died in the bombing. I was like, I couldn't grasp the idea at first. I was only 8 years. I'm like, bombing my sisters. It didn't make sense. And then as I got older and older, I started realizing, okay, I did have two sisters. Just what they were talking about when I was only 8 years old. I left Philadelphia. I came back. My mom passed away, and I had to find me an attorney so I can get my sisters out of Philadelphia. And like I stated, I can now rid them of the city that helped murder them. I can never hold my sister's hand, never hear their voices. I never got to grow up with them or interact with them. So the city of Philadelphia took so much from me.
Right. And were your sisters simply bystanders when this bombing occurred?
No, they were in the actual house itself. They were trying to get out, but for some odd reason, the city was shooting at the house. They dropped the bomb in the bunker ignited. The whole house went up in flames, and instead of putting the fire out, they let the fire burn.
Wow. And remind me, I apologize, but have you already retrieved their remains, or do you still have to go?
I have their remains in my possession, what was left of them. So yes, I have them in my possession as right now.
Okay. Did you have to drive to Philadelphia for that, or how did you retrieve them?
Well, the city of Philadelphia paid for my airfare and hotel accommodations. I mean, that was the least they could do, but it's not at all going to repay the debt that they owe me for killing my sisters. This is a small step.
So what comes next for you outside of maybe legal action, or is the next most important thing on your list actually giving them a proper burial or service?
Well, I'm still, like I stated, I'm sticking by it. I would like for the mayor of Philadelphia and the police commissioner to apologize publicly, because he represents the city that helped kill my sister, and the commissioner of Philadelphia Police Department, she represents the police department that dropped the initial bomb. So them two, I would like an apology for, and I'm still waiting.
Okay. So, I mean, clearly a very frustrating situation, but kind of looking at the positive side of things, what does it mean to you and your family that you get to provide your sisters with a more proper service or burial at this point?
It's an honor and respect and dignity thing for them since they suffered a tragic loss of their life. The way it happened, I shouldn't even be here talking about it in the first place, but they took them, and I'm bitter for it, and I'm moving on in my life. So I can say that part of my life is behind me now. That chapter in the book is finished, it's done, and just move on from there and just, recollect my thoughts and move forward.
Sure. And any plans for a service, and will that maybe be open to the public or simply be specific to just family there?
It's going to be private because, they've been exposed and displayed and manipulated for so many years. Even in their death, they couldn't rest in peace because the city just, did what they wanted with their remains, store them in a box on the shelf, and it's just inhumane to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to include or you thought was important for us to share with your story?
Simply do not turn a blind eye when you see something wrong, especially when it comes to government officials.
Okay.